The millionaire was in shock when he saw the exhausted girl sewing, desperately pleading for help, unable to speak. The sun touched Marina's face like a caress she'd never known. The soft warmth wasn't enough to heat her thin arms, marked with bruises, nor to heal the calluses covering fingers too small for so much pain. Her eyes stayed locked on the fabric, her trembling hands stitching carefully. One wrong stitch, and the punishment came quick. Isabella sat just a few feet away in a wicker chair, her cane resting between her legs like a coiled snake, waiting for the wrong move to strike. The table, the rice was already dry, the fish sharp with a bitter smell. Marina ate slowly, chewing more on the silence than on the food. In the background, the old radio crackled with talk of investments, stock markets, portfolios, words as distant as the word childhood. Faster, girl. That's not even worth the thread you're wasting. Isabella's voice scraped like stone dragged across the floor. Marina didn't answer. She never did. Silence was the only armor she had left. Outside, a man in a dark suit walked with steps that didn't match the place. Polished shoes sinking into the mud, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Nobody knew who he was. He didn't want them to. His name didn't matter. Not here. Not now. What mattered was what he'd seen through that torn curtain. A look. A silent plea, and a childhood strangled by underpaid stitches. But there was something he didn't know yet. The doorbell didn't work. He knocked, 3 sharp raps with his knuckles. Isabella glanced through the window and frowned. He didn't look like a debt collector or a salesman, and that unsettled her. Marina, stay put. Don't even breathe loud, she growled before opening the door. The crack revealed the man, tall, imposing, the scent of expensive cologne drifting into the room. Isabella didn't like clean people. Clean people ask questions. Yes? She said, the smile too tight to be genuine. Good morning, I'm mapping housing for a social outreach project. May I come in and talk for a bit? She hesitated, looked back inside, saw Marina motionless, eyes fixed on the floor, then opened the door, but kept a tight grip on the cane. Just a minute. I'm busy, but go ahead, speak from the entrance. He stepped in carefully like he was walking through an old memory. The smell of the house was a mix of mildew, fish, and fear. He looked around. He saw the stitched fabric, the injured fingers, and most painful of all, the silence in a child who should have been laughing. Your name? Isabella, I sew for a living. Me and my niece, she said bluntly. Does she go to school? The question hit the table like a knife. Isabella chuckled dryly, like swatting away a fly. School don't put food on a plate. She's here to help. He said nothing, looked again at Marina. She still hadn't lifted her eyes, but he saw the fingers wrapped in fabric, the stained bandages, the gaze buried in silence. Then, suddenly, everything fell apart. The needle slipped from Marina's hand. Another cut. Blood soaked into the cloth. Isabella whipped around, cane in hand, rushing toward the girl. Again, she shouted, raising her arm. The man caught the strike in the air. The wood trembled in his grip, and for the first time, Isabella's cold fury met something stronger than her rage. Enough. His voice was low but unshakable. And Marina looked up, finally meeting those unfamiliar eyes. And in them she saw something she'd never seen before. Interruption. A crack in the routine of pain. But then, he heard it. The back door slammed open. A man stumbled out of the bedroom, his face drunk, his steps unsteady. Who the hell is this, Isabella? The scent hit the air, cheap booze and old anger. The tension grew thick, the girl shrank into the corner. What began as a quiet visit had become an emotional minefield ready to blow. The drunk scratched his exposed belly under a stained shirt, bloodshot eyes narrowing at the stranger like he was trespassing in his private cave of misery. But the man in the suit didn't flinch. He stood there between the lifted cane and a child's muffled scream. I asked you who this is, Isabella. The man barked again, louder now, closer. Isabella lowered the cane slowly. Her eyes said there was more to this visit than met the eye. The man in the suit didn't belong there, but somehow he was dangerous. Not violent, just dangerous too. The rotting balance she'd built in that house. He's just some government guy, she muttered. He'll be leaving now. But the man didn't move. Marina was breathing hard in the corner, hands pressed between her knees trying to stop the bleeding with a dirty rag. The man looked at her, then at the two adults. Silence hung heavy. Doubt flickered in his eyes. Step, in or walk away, and then something stirred inside him. Something no one in that room could have known. He too had grown up to the sound of a creaky door at 5 a.m. He too had tasted dry rice and felt the weight of a stare that promised pain. The suit was recent, the success carefully built, but the fear, that was old and familiar. When he was 7, his mother ran from home carrying only 2 things, a broken rosary and her son in her arms. They fled the drunk father, the humiliation, the nights that only went quiet when the hit was hard enough. He remembered bus terminals, church cots, the iron scent of shelters. So when he saw Marina, he didn't just see a girl. He saw himself, a different face, a different hunger. But the same waiting. "I'm not from the government," he said at last, looking the drunk man straight in the eye. "And I'm not leaving." Isabella stepped forward, her face twisting with fury. "This ain't no place for charity, mister. The girl's fine. Just slow, learns things late." He didn't answer her. He stepped closer, pulled something from his jacket pocket, a plain wallet, no logo, no flash, just a card. He held it out to Marina. It was white, clean. At the center, just one word: Alvarada. She didn't take it, she only looked. But in that look, something changed. A pause. As if, for a moment, the world had stopped hurting. "Alvarada? What's that supposed to be?" Isabella snapped. "It's where things start over." But he still didn't know everything. The neighborhood had eyes, fast tongues, and debts. Marina wasn't just a mistreated child, she was a tool. Each shirt she sewed earned Isabella favors. One less mouth at school, one more body in the invisible production line of poor homes. The man in the suit could feel it, the threat growing. Not physical, structural. That girl was part of something bigger. Touching her meant disturbing the whole system. He knelt down, finally, eye level, with her, and spoke softly, like sharing a secret he once needed to hear. "I know what it's like, I really do, but you have to trust me, even just a little." Marina squeezed the cloth tighter. A drop of blood slid between her fingers. Her eyes hadn't yet learned how to believe, but in that instant she spoke. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" The question hit him like a blade to the chest, because it wasn't just a question. It was a rope tossed into the dark. A cry for rescue said in a small voice with a giant soul. He didn't answer right away, because the truth was, he didn't know. Didn't know if he could come back. Didn't know if he should. He only knew this: if he didn't, that look might never open again. At the back of the house, the drunk man had gone back into the bedroom, grumbling. Isabella picked up the cane again, not to strike, but as a shield. She knew something had shifted, and she didn't like it. The man stood, looked toward the door, then back at Marina. Tomorrow, before sunrise, and he left. Outside, the air felt lighter, but he knew this was just the beginning. The sun hadn't yet cleared the rooftops when he returned. Same shoes, same suit, but something about him was different. His shoulders carried a new weight, like leaving that house the night before had added a burden he couldn't name. It wasn't pity, he hated that word. It was anger and memory. It was the echo of a childhood he thought he'd buried beneath spreadsheets, meetings, and contracts. House number 7 was quiet. No radio, no harsh voice slicing through the air. Just the creak of the gate as he pushed it. Open. In the doorway, Isabella appeared like a shadow, harder now, colder. Her narrowed eyes didn't even pretend to hide the hostility. "Back so early? Who do you think you are?" He didn't answer right away. He'd learned that sometimes silence cuts sharper than words. "I want to talk to her, just 5 minutes." Isabella folded her arms. The look in her eyes said it clearly. No. But she didn't say no. She said something worse. "She's not here." His brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "Someone came for her, a cousin from another town. She'll be going to school, helping around their house. It's better for everyone." The lie slid through her teeth like oil, but he knew that kind of phrase. The kind that covers up a handoff, abandonment, a sale. "What town?" "Doesn't matter, she's gone." And she shut the door. But he didn't leave. He walked around the back of the complex, spoke to an old woman at the door next door to a young woman hanging laundry. No one said a word, but their eyes said everything. Marina hadn't gone anywhere. She was still there, hidden or worse. But there was something he still didn't know. Inside the house, Marina was locked in the back room, her hands tied with cloth, her mouth taped shut. The drunk man snored in the living room, a bottle by his side. Isabella paced like a vulture, waiting for the millionaire to give up. But he didn't. He went back to the car, took out his phone, called someone. The voice on the other end was calm, respectful. "I called because I need you, the girl, the house. Something's wrong." "You want me to call child services?" He hesitated. "Not yet. Just be on standby." The doubt ate away at him. How far could he go? What was his responsibility? What if he was wrong? What if stepping in did more harm than good? But then he heard it. A sound. Soft. A thump against the thin wall. A muffled noise, like someone trying to scream with their body. He went back to the door, knocked 3 times. "Isabella, I want to see the room now." Footsteps inside. She opened slowly. "You gonna leave or call the cops?" "Maybe both, but first, I'm going in." She tried to block the way, but he was already past her. He walked through the smell of alcohol, the echo of old fear, opened one door, then another, until he saw her, Marina, curled up in a corner, cloth over her mouth, eyes wide with a mix of terror and relief. He ran to her, gently pulled the tape off, untied her wrists. She didn't cry. She didn't scream, she just breathed, like someone surfacing after being underwater too long. "I knew you'd come back," she whispered, but in that moment, the front door slammed. The drunk man was standing, holding something metal in his hand, and the rage in his eyes was thick, dark. The millionaire stepped between him and Marina, arms outstretched. She grabbed the hem of his suit jacket like it was armor. "She's not your daughter. She's not your property. She's a child." The drunk laughed, a low, broken sound. "And what are you? Some movie hero?" The metal caught the light in his hand, and for the first time in years the millionaire felt true fear. Not for money, not for losses, but for the small, skinny, living soul behind him. The tension stretched tight like wire. One wrong move, and everything would fall. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to hit like Marina. Didn't scream, her voice was trapped, but her whole body shook. The drunk man didn't strike right away. He stood still, the weapon in his hand, eyes locked on the man in front of him like he was waiting for him to flinch, like everyone always had. But he didn't. He breathed deep, once, twice, and then said in a calm, unwavering voice, "If you touch her again, there won't be a wall in this world that can hide you." It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. And the drunk man felt it. He hesitated for just a second, but that second was enough. Marina ran, slipped between the man's legs and bolted out the door, barefoot through the dirt. He chased after her, heart pounding. Isabella screamed something behind them, but her voice was already just noise. When he caught up, Marina was crouched behind the car, arms wrapped around her knees, face buried in them. "I got you out. You're safe now." But there was still something he didn't know. Getting her out of that house was just the beginning, and maybe not even that, because minutes later, with Marina in the back seat and her breathing finally steady, he called. The social worker from Project Alvarada, the one who rescued teens from packed shelters, single moms, forgotten seniors. "I need emergency placement. It's serious." Name of the child? Marina. I don't know her last name. There. Was silence on the line. "Without court authorization, we can't take her in. We need an official report, child services, an investigation." He gripped the wheel, rage rising. Bureaucracy smelled like abandonment. "What if I pay for everything? Shelter, school, medical care, I'll cover it all." "It's not about money, sir, it's about legal procedures. You can't just take a child from her family." The word family hit him like a slap. Family. That's what they called that? He hung up without saying goodbye, looked in the rearview mirror. Marina stared back, eyes far too tired for an 8-year-old. "You want to go back?" She shook. Her head, a small no, shy but firm. Then you won't, he promised. Even though he had no idea how, he brought her to a quiet hotel, to a clean room with a window and AC. Ordered a hot meal, ice cream, and colored pencils. She barely spoke. She just ate slowly, then started drawing in the corner of a sheet of paper. A house, a sun, a man in a suit holding a girl's hand. But then, everything began to fall apart. Outside, 2 police officers knocked on the door. The receptionist had led them up, eyes wary. The millionaire opened calmly. "Good evening, we've received a report of a kidnapped minor." He showed his card, explained everything, but their eyes were neutral, almost bored. "We'll have to take her to the station, protocol. If everything checks out, the judge will decide." Marina clung to him tightly, eyes wide, body shaking. He tried to reason, but the decision had already been made. At the station, the floor was cold, the lights too bright. Marina was led to a small room, where a woman with a badge spoke to her with rehearsed gentleness. He waited outside, heard muffled words. 2 hours later, the social worker arrived, the same one from the phone call. The judge authorized temporary shelter. 7 days, then, we'll see. 2 words that usually meant she might go right back to hell. "Want custody official today." "That doesn't exist, you're a stranger to her." He didn't shout, but his eyes did the job. "She knew me and I knew her, that's enough." She sighed, sat down, started explaining. Evaluations, therapists, home visits, months, maybe years, all over again. But he knew. Marina didn't have that kind of time. Fear was eating her alive, slowly, like rust. He returned to the hotel alone, the bed untouched, the colored pencils still on the table. He picked one up, blue. And on the back of a restaurant, "Receipt." He wrote a sentence aloud, as if saying it to her. "We don't choose each other by blood, we choose each other by courage." But something was about to happen. The next day, Isabella showed up at the shelter, with a lawyer beside her, a tall man in a pinstripe suit, briefcase under one arm. She was smiling. Marina was inside, but he knew that woman was trying to take her back, by law, by force, by lies. Isabella's lawyer spoke gently, but every word drove a nail into the shaky floor where Marina was just beginning to build a fragile sense of safety. The shelter smelled of bleach and suspicion, and now with that man flipping open folders, everything felt far too breakable. The millionaire sat across the room, eyes fixed on the girl who kept glancing at him, as if checking whether the ground still held. "Legal custody belongs to the aunt," the lawyer said, placing a birth certificate, a proof of residence, and 3 black and white photos on the table. "Ms. Isabella has full legal rights to take Marina back. Any resistance may be classified as abduction." That word echoed like a hammer. Abduction. As if rescuing her from captivity was a crime. The social worker didn't hide her tension. The interim judge, a grey-haired man with tired eyes, flipped through the documents quickly. "Ms. Isabella claims the child ran away. No confirmed evidence of abuse. The gentleman's statement is circumstantial. She was tied up, ducked, tape on her mouth, locked in a room," the millionaire insisted. "But we have no forensic report, and the child did not disclose any abuse during questioning." He looked at Marina. She was silent. Eyes down, fingers laced, legs swinging slightly. The judge sighed. "The child appears fearful, but we can't rule based on that alone." But there was something the judge didn't know. Marina didn't speak because she'd learned that words had consequences. One mistake, and she paid in pain. Silence was survival, something the system mistook for neutrality. The millionaire stood, calmly, opened the folder he'd brought, pulled out 3 pages, photographs, her fingers bruised and bandaged, the tape peeled from her mouth, the bloodied shirt, and finally the drawing. The house, the sun, and him, the man in the suit. "I have no kids, no criminal record, but I saw it, I was there, and if I hadn't gone back that day, this child might be dead." The judge looked at the drawing, too long for it to mean nothing, then turned to Marina. "Is it true, Marina? Do you want to stay with this man?" She hesitated. Her eyes rose for the first time. They found his, and then she nodded. Barely. But it was real. That's when Isabella exploded. "Lies. That girl's ungrateful. I took care of her. He filled her head with garbage. He's brainwashing her, she shouted, lunging forward. Security held her back. The judge called for order, but the atmosphere had shifted. A mask had slipped. The lawyer quietly gathered his papers, said nothing more. Temporary custody remains with the shelter, the judge ruled, tapping the gavel softly. A formal psychological evaluation will begin immediately. The millionaire left the room without a word, but his heart felt heavy. This wasn't a victory, it was just a ceasefire. In the car, Marina didn't sleep. She stared out the window, silent. "You know why I came back?" he asked, not expecting a response. "Because I needed someone to come back for me too." She said nothing, but her shoulders relaxed. Days later, the shelter notified him. Isabella had filed an appeal. She demanded Marina be heard in court. The girl would have to speak, look a judge in the eyes and say I was abused, but she didn't know how. The millionaire began to doubt himself, his role, whether he was really helping or just making things worse. One night, sitting in the empty dining room of the shelter, he tried again. "Want to draw something else?" he asked, sliding over the colored pencils. She drew, slowly. This time a room with bars. Inside, a small girl, and outside, an open hand, not grabbing, just there, present. He understood it wasn't about pulling her out by force. It was about being there, even when she didn't know how to ask. Then his phone rang. It was the shelter director. "We just received a tip. A video was posted. Marina being dragged by her aunt outside a school weeks ago. A neighbor filmed it. It's going viral." Everything was about to change. The video spread across social media like wildfire. The footage was short, shaky, but undeniable. Marina, in a light blue school uniform, being yanked by the arm like a rag doll. Isabella, yelling, pointing fingers, and Marina resisting, not by force but by going limp, like someone who'd learned the less you fight, the less it hurts. The millionaire watched the video from the foundation's porch. The phone shook in his hands. He had tried everything: custody filings, emergency protection, anonymous reports, institutional placement, and still every step forward the system shoved back twice as hard. At the shelter, the director looked hopeful. "This changes everything. It's real evidence, the judge will see it." But there was something she didn't know. The judge watched it, met with the prosecution. But she also saw something else. Isabella's lawyer had returned, this time with more documents, new witnesses, paid neighbors. Even a false medical report saying Marina had mild emotional disorders and Isabella was her devoted caregiver. The video, they claimed, could have been staged or misunderstood. Nothing replaces a detailed technical evaluation, the judge concluded. And so far we lack evidence of sustained abuse. The millionaire felt his stomach drop. It wasn't just anger now, it was despair. He had shown everything: photos, stories, presence, and still, Marina remained bound to a world that was slowly killing her. "We're losing, aren't we?" he asked his lawyer over the phone one night. "We still have appeals," she said, "but it's slow, could take months, maybe years." In the meantime, Marina had stopped drawing. She no longer touched the pencils, didn't speak, barely slept. Her eyes stayed open far longer than they should. Her silence, once a defense, now looked like surrender. "Am I making it worse?" she asked one day, not looking up. "Of course not. Why?" "Because since you came, everything got harder. Now they want to send me back again." He didn't answer, because deep down, he was beginning to think the same, that maybe he'd crossed a line. That trying to save her had stirred up forces bigger, crueler, impossible. Then came the official document. Marina was to return to Isabella's custody, temporarily, until the final hearing. The decision was technical, legal, provisional, but it felt like a sentence. "I can't let this happen," he said, reading the letter. "We have no immediate legal appeal left," his lawyer explained, "unless she speaks. Unless she tells the judge herself she doesn't want to go back." But Marina didn't want to talk, didn't want to remember, didn't want to try anymore. On the night before the handoff, the millionaire sat beside her in the shelter's empty dining hall. He brought the pencils again, a blank sheet, and said nothing. He just stayed. Minutes passed. Then, for the first time in days, She drew. Two small figures in a dark corner, one taller holding a cane, one smaller, arms hidden, and beside them a distant figure, in a suit. Still, a thin line connected the two, almost invisible, but still there. He understood. That line was all that was left, and it was hanging by a thread. The next morning, the officials arrived to escort her back. The white car from Child Services stopped in front of the shelter. Isabella was already there, standing by the door, wearing new clothes and a makeup, like she was prepping the stage for another lie. Marina came out with her backpack. She didn't look back. The millionaire didn't move either, but his chest ached like something was being ripped out with claws. At the car door, she paused for just a second and said softly, "Thanks for coming back, even if it doesn't last." Then she got in. He stood there, motionless, like the little boy he once was, waiting by the gate after his mum had promised to come back, knowing it was a lie, but still waiting. In that moment, he thought about giving up on all of it. The custody battle, the fight, the Alvarado project. Because if, after all this, he couldn't even save one little girl, then what was he even doing? But just then, a hand touched his shoulder. It was the shelter director, holding an envelope. A letter that had arrived too late for the last hearing, but just in time to rekindle something. It was from the neighbor who'd filmed the video. And inside, there was more than just footage. There were words, testimony, details, dates, evidence, and fire. The letter shook in the millionaire's hands before he even read it. The envelope was simple, the paper folded in haste, but its weight was undeniable. He sat on a bench outside the foundation, opening it like something sacred. "My name is Anselmo. I live in house number 9 across from Isabella and Marina. I know I'm late in writing this and it hurts me, but now that I've seen what's happening, I can't stay silent anymore." The words kept coming, each line heavier than the last. He described hearing screams at night, punishments with broomsticks, days where Marina was locked up with no food. He'd seen Isabella sell the clothes Marina sewed, take the money, and say she had to work for the roof over her head, and then something else. Anselmo said he'd tried reporting it years ago, but had been ignored, that he regretted staying quiet, that after seeing the video go viral, he felt something he hadn't. In years, hope. That little girl can still be saved, and you might be her only chance. The millionaire finished the letter with wet eyes. He hadn't cried since burying his mother more than 20 years ago. But now, something in him broke. Or opened. It was hard to tell the difference. He ran to the shelter director, the letter in hand. "This changes everything. It's direct witness testimony. It's proof of long-term abuse." "It might work," she said, scanning the page. "If we can get an emergency hearing, I'll get one. Today." He called his lawyer, demanded speed, pressure, said he'd spare no resource. Hours later, the phone rang. The hearing was scheduled for the next day. The previous judge had been removed from the case due to conflict of interest, a revelation triggered by the public fallout from the video. The new judge was known for firm rulings, but also for listening. That night, he wrote a letter to Marina, gave it to the shelter director to hand-deliver. No big words, just truth. "It's not your fault you're afraid. I was afraid too. But fear is only the beginning of something bigger. Courage is just what we call it when fear keeps walking and doesn't stop." Marina read it in silence. And for the first time since she'd been sent back to Isabella's, she cried, not loud sobs, but quiet, stuttering breaths, like someone finally letting go of a weight they never should have had to carry. The next day, the Child Services van came for her again. This time she didn't step out with her head down. She had his letter in her pocket and a sketchbook hidden in her backpack. The security guard said she only took her first step after looking up at the sky, as if searching for a sign and finding one. In the courtroom, the millionaire waited. The judge, stern-faced, asked for silence, then read Anselmo's letter aloud. When she finished, she turned to Marina. "Now it's your turn. You can say whatever you want, or say nothing. It's your choice." But then something no one expected happened. Marina stood up. Her knees shook, but she didn't fall. She pulled her sketchbook from her backpack, opened to the last page. It was the same image as before: the girl in the corner, the cane, the man in the suit. But now there was something new. A red line stretched across the page, from darkness to light, from silence to voice. And the girl, she was standing. This is me trying to leave, she said, her voice small but clear. And him. He didn't pull me out. He just stood there waiting for me to walk out. No pressure, no rush. The judge looked at the drawing as if it were sworn testimony, and it was. Do you want to go back to your aunt? No. And do you want to stay with this man? I want to be with someone who doesn't hit me when I mess up. Someone who waits, even when I'm scared. The room fell into a silence deeper than any court had ever known. The judge took a deep breath, and though she didn't bang the gavel, everyone in that room knew. The decision was made. Justice had found its voice. Marina walked out of the courthouse with short, steady steps. On the sidewalk, sunlight spilled between the buildings, as if trying to cleanse what had happened inside. Next to her, the millionaire walked quietly. There was no celebration, no easy victory, only a new kind of silence, the kind that comes after the storm. He opened the car door. She climbed in without hesitation. In the back seat was a small wooden box with a gold hinge. She looked at him, cautious. He just said, "Open it when you're ready. No rush." On the way home, she didn't talk much. She stared out the window, as if mapping the world again, as if everything, even the familiar, was new. At the new foster home, a small house with a garden and a blue porch, she stepped out wordlessly, but she held the box tightly. In those first days, their routine was built through tiny gestures. He'd make breakfast. She'd watch from a distance. He'd leave little notes, fruits on the table. "Good morning, Marina. Hope you had a nice dream." And slowly she began to answer, not with words, but with signs. A folded napkin, a pencil on the table, a clean plate left to dry. One afternoon, while he was sorting papers in the living room, he heard the soft sound of a lid opening. It was the box. Inside, she found something unexpected. Professional colored pencils, heavy paper, a pen with her name engraved in gold, and tucked beneath them an old photo, a boy sitting on the steps of a train station holding a worn-out backpack. On the back, a handwritten line, "I was saved too, before I even knew I needed it." She didn't ask who the boy was. She didn't need to. That night she left her first drawing stuck to the fridge with a magnet, a house with 2 windows, a cat on the roof, and 2 figures on the porch, one holding a cup. The other drawing, but there was still something he didn't know. Marina was afraid of loud rain. The first time thunder rolled, she ran to the laundry room and curled up inside the cabinet, hands over her ears. He found her shaking, eyes shut, tight, her whole body tensed. "Can I stay here with you?" he asked gently. She nodded. He sat on the floor inside that narrow cabinet. Among shelves and brooms, they stayed there for over an hour. When silence returned, she opened her eyes. "You're not gonna leave, right?" "Only if you tell me to." She never told him to, not that night, not in the ones that followed. They started cooking together. He made the coffee. She peeled the fruit. One evening she asked if he knew how to make pancakes. He said no, but he'd love to learn from her. They laughed when the batter stuck to the ceiling, and even more when the neighbor's cat showed up at the window, drawn by the smell. Marina went back to school. The first day was rough. She cried at the door, clutched her backpack. He stayed in the car watching from a distance. At the end of the day, she ran to him and held up a drawing, a smiling girl with the sun behind her. In the corner, a small heart. The rebuilding was slow, but it was real. The following month, the judge granted temporary custody. The adoption process was underway. The psychologist said Marina had started verbalizing her feelings, that she used drawings as bridges, that she was dreaming, and, finally, believing she might stay. One night, he found her on the porch, sketchbook in her lap. She looked up and asked, "Do you think broken people can fix others?" He paused, looked at his own hands. At the scar on his left palm, a childhood souvenir from broken glass. At the girl now meeting his gaze without fear. I think, broken. People recognize each other, and sometimes they hold on to each other until it stops hurting. She smiled and went back to drawing, but across the city at that exact moment, a letter was being signed. Isabella had filed again, and this time, she didn't just want custody, she wanted revenge. The envelope arrived on a rainy morning, delivered by a pale, hurried official. The millionaire signed for it, not understanding at first, but when he opened it, the weight of the past shoved hard against his chest. Isabella had filed a new petition, alleging parental alienation, undue influence, and the word that stung most, emotional kidnapping. The document was cold, technical, detached. But behind every legal phrase, the intention was the same as always. Control, not love. Control. What does it mean? Marina asked, curled on the couch, the neighbor's cat nestled in her arms. He hesitated. He wouldn't lie. It means she's trying to take you back. Again. She didn't cry, didn't run, didn't hide. She stayed quiet for a few seconds, then said, "If she comes, I'll talk." All of it, every word. It was the first time he heard her say that. The first time her voice sounded like a decision, but there was something he didn't know yet. The new hearing would be public. Isabella wanted attention. She had hired a new lawyer, more aggressive, known for flipping impossible cases, and her strategy was clear: undermine Marina. Portray the millionaire as an emotional manipulator. Dismiss their bond as manipulative attachment. In the days leading up to it, the house grew quiet. Not from fear, but focus. Marina was working on a notebook. She wrote down memories, stories, glued drawings between short paragraphs, simple phrases. It was her way of organizing the chaos. He'd watch her at night, perched on a chair, feet tucked up, tongue between her teeth, concentrated like a child, writing her name for the first time. On the morning of the hearing, the sky was clear, as if the city wanted to help. They arrived early. Marina wore a navy blue t-shirt with a stitched star, her hair pulled back, her eyes steady. He walked in beside her, no tie, just as she'd asked. "Will you stay with me?" she whispered. "To the end," he said. The room was full. Journalists, neighbors, strangers. Isabella sat with a tight smile, makeup layered like armor, as if it could cover what can't be washed away. The judge entered, asked for silence, outlined the terms, then called Marina to the front. "You can speak, in your own words, or show us what you wrote." She walked to the center, opened the notebook slowly, looked at the judge, then at the room, and began. "I'm not a thing, not a project, not a doll. I'm a person, and what he did it was wait for me, listen to me, hold me only when I asked, not because he wanted to have me, but because he saw I was falling." The room fell into silence. She held up. Tear drawing, a girl at the top of a staircase. At the bottom, Isabella's shadow. In the middle, a bridge. And on the far side, the man in the suit, arms open but not moving forward. "I lived in fear. I ate fear. Slept in fear. Now I want to grow without fear. Is that too much to ask?" The judge closed her eyes for a moment, then called the millionaire forward. He didn't give a speech, just held up the notebook and said, "I'm just the first one who listened. The rest is all hers." But then Isabella exploded. "This is all an act. That girl's ungrateful. I gave her food and a roof. He's using her." Security stepped in. But the mask had already cracked. The room, once neutral, could now see what had been obvious from the start. The truth. The judge called for order. Then, with a voice calm but resolute, declared, "This court recognizes the emotional bond between Marina and this man, and based on the child's well-being and the evidence presented, grants permanent custody to him. A formal investigation into Ms. Isabella for child abuse will begin immediately." Marina didn't understand at first, only when he hugged her tight and whispered, "You're not going anywhere," did her body finally relax. The weight lifted, like letting go of a stone you'd carried for too long. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but they walked past them all. In the car, he turned on the radio. An old song played. Marina smiled. I don't know this one. We can learn it together. But something was still ahead. The Alvarado project, founded by him years ago, would now officially support children rescued from abusive environments. And the first registered volunteer, Marina, wearing a handmade badge with her name and a mission she wrote herself. Listen, wait, and only hold when they ask. In the backyard of their new home, sunlight filtered through the yellow blossoms of a Brazilian ipé tree. Marina sat on the steps, drawing, legs tucked beneath her, tongue in the corner of her mouth, like always when she focused. The sketchbook was new, same smell of fresh pages, but this time filled with stories she was creating herself, not memories, not trauma, fiction, things that hadn't happened, but could. And that was freedom. Inside, the millionaire made coffee. The kitchen had become their shared ritual. Each morning he brewed it like his mother had, just the right amount of sugar, slowly poured, served in a white mug. Marina liked hers with milk and toast with melted butter. She never asked. She just sat, and he always knew. That day she came in barefoot, fingers stained with colored pencil. What are you drawing? He asked, stirring the pan. A place where no one has to shout to be heard. He paused, looked at her, then returned to the coffee, slowly. She was growing, not in inches, in presence. That weekend, they visited the new Alvarado space. Marina received her volunteer badge. Junior volunteer, it read. She helped shelve books, sharpen pencils, greet children who arrived too quiet to ask for affection. The first one to smile at her was a 6-year-old girl, wrists marked, eyes hollow. Marina didn't ask anything. She just sat beside her and started drawing. 10 minutes later, they were swapping sketches. Not a word spoken, but everything understood. But there was something no one knew. At night, in her pale-walled room, Marina wrote letters she never sent. To the mother who vanished without a word, to the father she only knew by name, to the teacher who expelled her for not paying attention, and to the little girl she used to be, the one who still sometimes stared back from the mirror, afraid of coming back. The millionaire discovered it one day when he found one of her letters on the couch. He didn't read it. He just folded it gently and left it on her bed with a simple note. If you ever want me to read it, I will. If not, I'll keep it safe, with you. She never mentioned the note, but a few weeks later she left a letter on the table. At the top she'd written, "This one's okay," and little by little, she began to trust. He changed, too. What used to be a formal office was now full of drawings taped to the walls, scattered pencils, a small bulletin board where Marina pinned quotes she liked. One day he stopped in front of it and read one aloud. "Family is who waits outside, even when the door is locked." He didn't ask where it came from. He already knew. One Sunday, they decided to cook together again. Pancakes. It was their recipe now, and when the batter stuck to the ceiling again, they laughed like before. But this time, it wasn't just fun. It was belonging. Marina was back in school. Her grades were average, but her sketches in the margins of her notebooks were always praised. One day, the principal called the millionaire in for a meeting. She said Marina had talent. That, maybe one day she could illustrate books. He didn't answer right away. Just smiled like someone who had known that from the very first drawing. On the way home, Marina asked, "If I leave one day, will you be sad?" "Only if you're running." "But if you're flying, I'll be proud." She stayed quiet, but that day she drew a hot air balloon with 2 people inside and the wind blowing them forward. The last scene of that chapter, they were in the backyard watering the plants. The neighbor's cat slept curled on the porch rug. The radio played a soft instrumental tune. Marina watered slowly, her eyes on the sky. "Do you think it's going to rain?" "I don't know," he said. "But if it does, we've got shelter now." She smiled, and for the first time, she didn't glance behind her, searching for shadows. The past hadn't vanished. But now it was just that past. The present was made of tea in a cup, toast with melted butter, afternoons of colored pencils and quiet comfort. And the future. The future was in every new line Marina drew, in every child who walked into the Alvarado project and left, holding a sheet of paper filled with color, in every adult who learned that loving also means waiting. On the foundation's mural, she pinned her final quote, "Not every beginning hurts. Sometimes starting over is the most beautiful part. Thank you for being here until the end." But don't go just yet. On the screen next to you, there's another emotional story waiting. Click subscribe to the channel and share with someone who needs it. I'll see you there.